Good afternoon to all, and welcome once again to a series of online events. Thank you for joining us for today's talk. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm Sunita, one of the travel specialists at Travel the Unknown. Soviet Fringes. You must be wondering where that came from. The name was coined by Travel the Unknown. You have the Baltics, Caucasus, and Balkans, so why not something for Belarus, Ukraine, and Moldova to refer to them collectively? These countries offer a very interesting blend of the Soviet era and the present-day lifestyle that they have transitioned into. It may be almost 30 years since these countries broke away from the mighty Soviet Union, but so little is known about them. Belarus is still very Soviet in many ways, but tourists now are made to feel very welcome and they can travel around freely. The country has also relaxed the visa policy to encourage more and more people to visit. Explore the quirky capital Minsk, the castles, and beautiful green landscapes around the country. Belarus is also called the lungs of Europe for its numerous forests, lakes, and rivers. It is considered one of the cleanest countries in Europe. Ukraine is the most European of the three countries. It has a very relaxed ambience. It is known for its charming Orthodox churches, cave monasteries, and Black Sea coast. Enjoy the cafes at Lviv and the world's deepest metro station at Kiev. A trip to Ukraine is incomplete without a visit to Chernobyl, the site of the 1986 nuclear disaster, which was the turning point eventually leading to the collapse of the Soviet Union. Moldova, the smallest of the three countries, is also the least visited in Europe. Once known as the Garden of the Soviet Union, and after going through turbulent times post-independence in 1991, it has now carved its own identity. The country has a well-established wine industry and is home to the largest underground wine cellars in the world. You can even get a sneak peek into President Putin or Chancellor Merkel's private wine collection stored in the underground cellars at Cricova. While in Moldova, a visit to Transnistria is a must. It is the largest outdoor living museum you can ever visit, or more aptly, it is like stepping into a Soviet time machine. I will leave it to our speaker to tell you more. We are very pleased to have with us today Eriks Lingeberzins, Managing Director of Travel the Unknown's local partnership. Born and raised in Riga, Eriks is a through and through tourism professional. He has not only worked in this industry since the start of his career, but has gone on to earn a doctorate in tourism enterprise management. He is also the head of tourism research and an assistant professor at the Chernobyl University in Riga. Not surprisingly, Eriks also possesses good linguistic skills and is fairly fluent in various languages. Post Eriks' presentation, I will give some background on our tours and then we will have time for question answers. Considering Eriks has been conducting online classes for his students of late, and should he get into the teacher mode, he might be the one to start asking questions, so please stay attentive throughout. Please ensure your mics remain muted to avoid background noise and videos remain off at all times. You can send us your questions through the chat box and we will pick them up during the question answer round. Time now to put the spotlight on Eriks. Over to you, Eriks.
Yes, thank you, Sunita, very much. Good evening, everyone attending, and thank you very much for your interest in this part of the world and this part of Europe. And quite frankly, it in reality very much corresponds to the area Travel the Unknown, because it still remains an area that we can consider to be unknown. And today I will try to break probably also some of the stereotypes that people sometimes have about these areas. So let me take you to this virtual journey through three amazing, interesting countries, and I really hope I will be able to make some discoveries for you and create interest in this area. So where do we start? I still would like to start with a little bit of geographical insight about the area we are talking about. We are talking about an area that consists of three countries. Geographically, you can see them that this is the area between modern days Russia and part of Western or Central Europe. And this location, where all these countries have very big impact in reality on on the content, on the present day's realities of the area. It is truly the place where the Slavic area meets the western part of the Europe. It is also the place where, in some cases, modern meets a bit of something left from the past. So we will start it from the north, from Belarus, and we'll move southbound into Ukraine and further into Moldova. I have to tell that in reality, the size of these countries allows, especially in case of Ukraine, could allow to speak a lot on different aspects. So I have tried and have prepared for today a summary, really the essence of the best it can offer for a visitor. So if we look on the Belarus and geographical position of Belarus and which are these areas of the main points of interest, and also how normally a visit of Belarus is organized, Minsk is located, we can say, very much in the center of the country, and that allows to plan the journeys using the Minsk as a base, as a starting point. There are three main directions how normally Belarus is presented. It is either from the part of Poland, and I have marked on the map the cities of Rodno and Brest on the western part of the country, and due to proximity to Ukraine, then one of the ways how the country can be visited is also continuing into the city of Chernobyl that is already in Ukraine. So where usually starts the story about Belarus? It starts in Minsk, the capital city of the Belarus, and I would like to take you further from here. So what are the main things why Belarus could be interesting? This is, of course, the capital, the Minsk itself, that usually is the starting point. Now, Belarus nowadays is a country with a population of almost 10 million inhabitants. It is one of those countries where there are two official languages, one of them being Russian and other being Belarusian, and even both are Slavic languages. There are certain differences between them both. Still, Belarusian is, we can say that Belarusian is the most similar to spoken Russian. It is the country with rich history and culture, and this history and culture, it dates back to different periods of the history, and then we should take a very big insight into history to show it, so I will touch just some of those aspects. Belarus is a country with overall developed infrastructure. It dates back to the Soviet times, when it was the area where a lot of factories and industry was located, and this meant that roads and the network of roads and also railroads were constructed in that period of time, and now they are still kept updated, and they are still in place. So if we look on this map with the most important places that usually where we also invite our guests, and this is of course the city of Minsk, the capital. Then we definitely should pay attention also to, as I mentioned already, Grodno here in the western part, as well Brest. But what is interesting that around Minsk there are several further points of interest which can be visited as a day trips from the capital. So if we start with Belarus and its capital, then in reality Minsk is absolutely unique combination where a lot of European or what we can call European or or architecture from that we can find also in other European countries, be it Poland, Czech Republic, and others, meet with what is the pure Soviet architecture, the Soviet buildings, the style, the Stalinist style architecture, which is also in the picture on the right-hand side. This is what you find everywhere in Minsk, and from the architectural point of view, this is also what Belarus is the most proud of in reality. Belarus is also famous and a country that promotes its culture in different ways, and with no big surprise, its national ballet and opera theater itself, but also, of course, the content of ballet and opera is of a high level. And also Minsk circus. Circus is a tradition that has been developing very much also during the previous period, but now it is also transforming and adjusting to new realities of introducing the contemporary understanding of circus. You probably may know Yuri Nikulin circus in Moscow, then you can definitely expect pretty much the same also from circus of Minsk. Belarus also has it has developed culturally diverse product or culturally diverse offering. It has to do something also with these almost 30 years of we could say a hybrid political regime or hybrid model of governing the state, where really it has been the government, the public spending has been made exactly in different cultural places, and in particular museums that add certain value to the product of the city. Belarus is also even not directly related to Minsk. Belarus is the place of Marc Chagall. Marc Chagall is probably one of the best-known Belarusians, and it is the person the Belarusians themselves are the most proud of. The city where which relates to Marc Chagall. This is Vitebsk, which is located in northeastern part of the country. And if this is the plan in the visit, then usually this is an additional day to be taken outside of the Minsk to reach the Vitebsk as one of these points of interest in the country. Belarus also, Belarus still, we should say, is very much a rural country, a country that has very strong rural traditions. Still a lot of people, they find their homes exactly in rural areas of the country, but in order to give an understanding and present this rural lifestyle of the country, now, quite recently, there have been developing direction. There has been a movement, which we could say visiting of rural farmsteads. There is also ethnographical museum Dudutki right next to the capital city, but these rural farmsteads really offer some unique combination of traditional understanding of rural lifestyle with elements of modernity in it as well. If we should go further outside of the capitals and explore some areas of interest exactly outside, then Mir and Nezvish castles are two of the places that are UNESCO heritage places, and when visiting, they are located in this area outside Minsk, the capital. That is a perfect day trip visiting both of them, and as I mentioned already before, then Grodno and Brest are two others that are outside the capital. Belarus also is a place for a visit to admire and get inspiration from natural reserves. And here, the most important place to mention probably is Belovezhskaya Pushta. This is a nature park on the western side of the country, and interestingly, that similar national park is also across the border on the Polish side. But if we compare both of these, then Belarus has been much more promoting and supporting development of the natural reserve, as it says exactly in the country. It's a natural reserve, but it's also like a nature park which can be visited. So it's not entire; it's protected areas that is still available for visitors in order to get inspiration from real pure nature heritage. All of this also, as the country, the size of the country is big enough, then different elements of ethnography is exactly concentrated in ethnographical parks that are located in different parts of the country. They all are with recently developed modern infrastructure that of course brings attention of the visitors that are coming to Belarus. They all are well maintained, as generally I mentioned infrastructure in this country. As I mentioned already, these are the two places, the 2 points of interest that we definitely should pay attention to. Oh, sorry, where did disappear my castles? Yes, sorry, the Mir and Niezvish castles, approximately 200 kilometers outside of the city, and these are the two places that are in the UNESCO list in Belarus, and what Belarusians are very proud of themselves. I want to show you also in the pictures how to look Brest and Rodno, two cities I have mentioned already a few times. And if you see them, then in reality you can very easily find yourself in some other Central European city. They are they are preserved and partly reconstructed after the World War II, which heavily hit Belarus as a country. But nowadays, the life is very much, so far has been very much vibrant, and it offers all those opportunities that you can find in some larger cities in Central Europe. Just the main difference is that this is not the area that where we could speak about the problem of crowding and over tourism. So still you can find yourself in a very relaxing environment, and that is surrounded by the culture. Culinary is always something that is interesting to people, and what do we eat, and what is the main food. Belarus has been known for a long time as the home for buckwheat and production of buckwheat. This is what people eat in the daily meals, but also all the different traditional food that is common for Central and Eastern Europe, starting with the beetroot soup, which is available at restaurants or hotels for meals, and also different opportunities to experience the food, be the culinary quests or master classes that are available, where you can engage yourself in preparation of this of the food. This is available both in the capital city, but also in other smaller provincial areas. Belarus also is interesting in the aspect that it still has very strong military in general, and some of this military has been transferred also into the tourism. So if it is a group of visitors, then you can experience different military activities. Even, for example, a drive in a tank in abandoned areas outside of the city, or what we call also as animation programs, where you can participate in games of the military. If we move southbound from Belarus into the next country, to Ukraine, then there is a road that goes through the city of Chernobyl, which we will return into the capital of Ukraine, Kiev. Kiev is located also in the northern part, but in the center of the Ukraine. And Kiev is also where you can see and experience very well this division and this split between the west and the east. And also Ukrainians themselves, they very much refer and perceive country as the western part and the eastern part. These two are in reality very different of what they are offering. In Ukraine, the main areas of the interest is the southern part of with the city of Odessa and surrounding areas, and on the western part is the city of Lviv, as in Ukrainian, which is the point from where you can start also visit to Carpathian Mountains that go into Poland, Slovakia, and also Romania. Normally, a question that is asked about the security and the situation with security in Ukraine, and I want to draw attention that the areas that are these unstable areas are located here around Luhansk and Donetsk. And if you take the map from Kiev to these areas, it is more than 800 kilometers distance. Now, currently, this is area that is out of our interest, so we more concentrate on the western and the southern part of Ukraine. So Ukraine on the map with Kiev, that is the capital city of the country, and two other most important cities that I mentioned already. Ukraine, it has a population of 42 million inhabitants. That makes this, in the context of European countries, in reality a very large country. A large country, of course, means certain diversity of what Ukraine is about. Ukrainians are speaking Ukrainian, which is the official language of the country. Still, there is a population that is fluent in Russian, but because of the past 6 years, there is a certain movement of speaking and learning Ukrainian also among those who are native Russians born in Ukraine. So by the territory, it is the second largest country in Europe, and it has 5.9% of European territory. That also has been investing in its development over past 30 years. And also similar with Belarus, it is a point of interest primarily because of its historical and cultural sites and the history and culture in general. Taking you to the capital, the first stop and most probably the best known place is the view on the Maidan Square. The Maidan Square is considered to be the very city center of the Kiev, with Hotel Ukraine at the back of the square, and usually from there starts all the visits. This is the very lively area, and for going out, and the bars and restaurants and everything is very much in the area around the Maidan Square. But if we look from the historical perspective, what Ukraine is about, and this is of course the role of Ukraine and Ukrainian Orthodox Church in the all Orthodox world. Saint Sophia Cathedral is the main place of that is of the interest, because that's the place where Orthodox Church of Ukraine, so to say, is based. Another interesting place, and this usually comes very much as a surprise to the visitors, is Kiev Peccherska Lavra monastery. It is active monastery, and why do we go there? Is because of the monastery itself, but also the caves. Under the monastery there are the caves, which are called also therefore also sometimes this monastery is called the cave monastery. But that's just a part of the monastery complex itself. World War II, second, is important turning point in the history of all this area, and that's the reason why the World War Museum and the Statue of Motherland are among the most impressive areas in the city, from where you can see also the Dnipro river. Opera is still of a point of interest for the same reason that, of course, for a population of 42 million, this is one of the most important cultural places in the country. Open air museums is a common tradition also in Ukraine. There are at least 2 of these museums that are in the area close to Ukraine, and if you don't have enough time to visit all of the Ukraine, and you must have a lot of time visiting it, then the open air museums is a place which very much disclose and where you can see these differences of different regions in Ukraine, and understand better how do life differ, for example, the one from Carpathian mountains from the one near the Odessa region, near the Black Sea, or in the eastern part of the country. Noticed we had this picture on the first slide when we started this this evening. This is Andrew's Descendant Church, which is located also in the city center of Kiev. And this is something that you can see and admire from all the different parts of the city, because the center, the historical center of the Kiev, is located on a hill, and it's also one division how you can separate the city. There is the lower part near the Dnipro River, and then the upper part of the city where are located the monasteries, and in particular the Andrew's Descendant Church that is visible from all the different places. And as I mentioned, in Kiev, a big role is played by the Dnipro River that is going through it. And the Dnipro River is the place from where you can see this panoramic view of the city, and see how the city looks from the waterfront. One interesting place that is only in Kiev of this scale is Mezhgorye Museum, or also called the Museum of Corruption. This is the former residence of the President Yanukovych in Ukraine, who was the president of the country between 2010 and 2014, and he was the main reason also why started all the big change in the country in exactly 2014. His house, as it was at the day when he left, of course, he took some of the most valuable things with him, is open to the visitors. It has a very impressive park around it, and it's publicly open, and this is the place where also local people often go to visit or spend time outdoors. And as Sunita mentioned in the very beginning, Ukraine is the place where is located Chernobyl, or a city of Pripyat, which is the northern part of the country. Now, this is, of course, one of the highlights when visiting Ukraine. Still, the area that is accessible to the visitors is the area that is defined as a safe area to the visit. Right next into the locator you are not able to get, but you can see the surrounding area and how one city actually was abandoned overnight when the disaster happened in 86 in the last days of April. Ukraine also is nowadays, especially Kiev, very much developing its gastronomic product, and you can find very different thematical restaurants in Kiev, where you can feel yourself also at some period of the history in the park. For example, this one, Pervak Kiev, is one of the places that usually, if you open various guidebooks and stories about what is Ukraine, then it's very possible that this restaurant will be among the recommendations for its interior, for the ambience and experience you can get there. From Kiev, we move to Lvov, or Lviv, as Ukrainians call it. And Lviv is very much a different story. Also, Ukrainians themselves say that Lviv is more an example of how Ukrainians would like to see the future of the country. Because of the close proximity to the Poland, it has recently received very big impact also from Europe, from contemporary Europe, but it also has very big impact from the past. Lviv has a much larger old city or old town if we compare with Kiev itself. Kiev being a large city does not have this traditional understanding of what the old town would be, but this is the reason why usually there is the combination in the visits that both Lviv and Kiev are visited. Lviv Gallery is one of the examples of, also from the architectural point of view, but also from the content point of view, that is visited. It's located in Pototsky Palace, and once we get to Lviv area, then exactly the palaces surrounding it is of the point of interest. Landmark of the city is St. Yura Cathedral, because of this massive and impressive architecture in the city center as well. And of course, it's part of, as I mentioned, very important part of in the culture is the opera, and Opera House is the area around which the old town of Lviv city is located. So here another look on in the summertime on the street of Lviv, that in reality very much could be like a postcard from some other Central European city. Similarly, also with the market square, that is the main central area of the city. Interesting place in Lviv is a pharmacy museum. It is the pharmacy in its traditional or historical understanding that we could refer pretty much as a homeopathic pharmacy, where there is still offered different ways, different alternative medicines, but also given the story on how the idea of pharmacy was developing, and how have we reached with the pharmacy industry that we know probably today. Lviv is also where different cathedrals that complement this architectural landscape of the city is located. But when we move outside of Lviv, and usually that would be at least one full day visit outside the city, then the palaces. Palaces is those places that keep very much this historical heritage of the area, and Zolchiv Palace is one of these interesting areas that is outside of the urban areas, and that speaks about this life of western part of Ukraine. If we move from the western part to the south, then the main stop in the southern part of the country, this is city of Odessa. Odessa is again different from what is Kiev and what is Lviv, because of its location next to the Black Sea, also having the port, and whenever there is a port city and international trade, then it also has influenced how the cities are. This is how the Odessa would look from above, with these quite regular streets and all the promenade across the coastline of the Black Sea. The port area is so far has been also developing because of the cruises that are coming to the city, because the Black Sea is available for cruising as well. From the architectural point of view, this content, the city center probably does not have that much of this architecture as it is, for example, in exactly Lviv. But still, it has city center that is this historical city center. The main nightlife of the Odessa city is around Deribasovskaya Street, that is the pedestrian street, and around this is organized all the nightlife of the city. As the city has this setup of parallel streets that are going from the port area, then you have in different places different squares that are surrounded by the architecture starting from 17th, 18th century. And probably one of the places that is always of an interest is the stairway in front of the port area. That is, if you have in every city like a meeting point where you meet the people or fix an appointment, then Potemkin stairway would be the place. Odessa is also interesting as it has very extensive network of catacombs that also are available for visits. And there are even tours that we call as underground tours of Odessa city. And as we are moving into the southern area of this tour or the countries, the Soviet Fringes, then Odessa is already a place where we start to speak about wine culture and wine cellars, and the wine tasting is possible also in Ukraine, in the area of Odessa. Here example of Shabo, one of the best known wine tasting places in Ukraine. And if going a bit outside of Odessa, then is the Akraman fortress. That is an example also on how the fortresses were built in the area of the Black Sea, that has some important insight in the history of Ukraine. Other than that, on the other side, the seaside of Odessa, this is a very vivid and vibrant area, especially in the summertime. And in Odessa, you can very well feel already the southern or Black Sea atmosphere. One more of seaside of Odessa, so you can consider it also to be a resort area. Another area that is probably less mentioned and there has been less attention paid to it is the area of Carpathian Mountains. This is the place that can be visited both in summertime but also in wintertime because of the skiing resorts. The place around Bukovel is the best known skiing area of Ukraine, and that's a place that is visited not only by Ukrainians but more and more recently also international visitors because of developing infrastructure that is available in this area for winter time. So for summertime, it's more area for outdoor activities into the Carpathian Mountain and really learning and seeing the life of Carpathian Mountain. As the Ukraine is a big country, is always important to understand that transportation, most convenient way of transportation is by train, and there is available high quality trains that are operated between the cities in Ukraine, and between also Kiev and Lviv, for example, it's possible. There are still available trains for a bit different experience to do an overnight trip, for example, from Kiev to Odessa by overnight train. That's also a possibility, but normally these high-speed trains would be the one how you navigate around Ukraine. And from Ukraine, from Odessa, that would be somewhere here, we are moving a bit westbound into the third country of our Soviet Fringes tour, that is Moldova, smallest of three countries. And as we started already in southern Ukraine with the topic of wine, then Moldova, this is the of course the wine country. And if we go back again to the Soviet times, then Moldovan wine was was especially demanded by the population of people living in the country. Still, it has the population of 9.5 million inhabitants, with the official language Romanian, but also spoken Ukrainian, Gagauzan, Bulgarian languages. And Moldova, what makes Moldova different from Ukraine and the Belarus is that this has been the crossroad of Russian Empire and Ottoman Empire in the past, and it has, of course, determined how the life is organized. If we continue with the topic of the crossroads of East and West, then Chisinau is where you can see it at its best. This is one of the roads that goes into the city of Chisinau, and these iconic buildings that are on the both sides of the road usually is one of the postcards that Kiev is associated with. Downtown of Chisinau itself is the center that has a history of Bessarabia, that is a historic region, but the Bessarabia, it was until 1820, when after the Russian-Turkish War, the eastern half of Moldova, it was integrated into Russian Empire, and so it has stayed under Russian Empire since then. And of course, life has changed in this perspective, and we see less of this Ottoman influence from the past, and more is of the Russian cultural area. But usually when we speak about Moldova, that's also a bit different from Belarus and Ukraine. We would speak more about Moldova as a wine country, and it is truly a wine country with two of the best known wineries, Cricova and Purcari wineries, where different prominent European leaders, celebrities are also having their wine collections, and these are two places also available for visits. And we look on Moldova map, even the country is not that large. As some other well-known wine countries in Europe, you can see that almost all the territory of Moldova is divided in 4 wine regions. So it's similar with the tradition that there are different wines and different wine production in each of these areas of Moldova. If going out and having a look on some elements that are related to this previous history, when this was the area of Bessarabia, then Tighina fortress is definitely one of them that we always, where we take the guests. And when speaking about Moldova, there is always an interesting part and conversation of what is with Transnistria, or this area that is between. It is the part of Moldova, but it is known as this one of these territories that are disputable territories in Europe. If you carefully take a look on the map of Transnistria, it still has the structure of the flag, that the flag as all the Soviet republics were known. So the flag, it explains something what how is the situation in the Transnistria. And Transnistria, it can be visited. Visits are possible. The entry is from the Moldovan side, not from Ukrainian side, and it is like a possibility to get a bit into the past and still to see and feel a bit what was the Soviet Union about. And this is the place where still, similar also as in Russia, for example, you find the monuments of Lenin in different places surrounding the city. In this respect, also exactly the Transnistria area is known for its cognac. Quint is the main product that has been produced for quite a time, and this is one of these products. If you ask from the cultural perspective, what is this area famous for, then at least for the locals or people who are familiar with it would name definitely the Quint factory that is producing this cognac. In Transnistria, of course, still life is very much different from what we would expect in other of these countries, and that's why it's fair to say that Moldova is a country that is still in transition and still trying to identify who they are and how they are in relation to the rest of, in relation to geographical area where they are located. So I feel that that at this point I am exceeding this normal time of online activities when people can hold their attention. So I hope I have given you insight into this part of the world, and I think, Sunita, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we can proceed now to question part.
Thank you for the interesting insights and visual treat, Eriks. So I'll just take a few moments to take everybody through our tours, and then we'll move on to the question answer rounds. So starting with the multi-country tour along the Soviet Fringes, which is pretty much in line with what with how the presentation went. That's how Eriks did it, starting from Belarus, going on to Ukraine, and then on to Moldova. So it's a 14-day trip, and that is how this tour starts. You fly in and out of Belarus into Ukraine, and then it's a surface transfer going on to Moldova and Transnistria. We run 2 trips every year in April as well as September, or you can do it as a private trip at any time. Then we have the, sorry, I think I've jumped that, oops. That's it, Belarus Explorer, which we currently offer as a private tour, and it takes you around all of Belarus, which takes in the Soviet echoes, the culture and traditions of the Belarusians, and the beautiful green landscapes. You can take this trip at any time. In fact, while the best months may be March to October, but even during December, January, during the winter period, it is like a winter wonderland. It's beautiful, and you can easily travel at that time of the year too. The Ukraine tour is called the Ukraine Explorer. It's an 11-day trip. We run 2 departures in May and September. It starts from the western part of the country, Lviv, and then goes on to the south, Odessa, and then moves up north, and covers pretty much everything, whatever Eriks took you through. And then we have the Moldova Explorer, an 8-day trip, which then takes in the best of Moldova, including the fine wines, takes you on to Transnistria and the other autonomous territories that exist in Moldova. Here again, we run 2 trips in May as well as October. The October trip coincides with the wine festival there. Some useful information on all these countries. Belarus is about 3 hours ahead of GMT. There are direct flight options from London and other European countries. We did get, while the talk was on, we did get some questions regarding the visa and the waiting time there at the airport. So yes, UK citizens now do not require a visa for travel up to 30 days. But that is only applicable if you fly in and out of Minsk. Should you want to travel overland into the neighboring countries, then you must get a visa in advance. I'm not sure about the cost, but it is fairly expensive. And for visa-free travel, travel insurance is a must. You must produce that on arrival at the airport, because regardless of your hotel accommodation or your how much cash you're carrying or whatever, they want to see your travel insurance. Should you not have it at hand, they do have counters there, and then they make you buy at the airport. Their money is called the Belarusian ruble. They have few ATMs, but those are not reliable, so money changing is the best option, and euros and USD are widely accepted. Most places do accept credit cards too. The best time to travel is from March to October. Ukraine is about 2 hours ahead of GMT, and there are direct flight options from London and other European countries. Again, UK citizens do not require visa for up to 90 days. Entry requirements do vary for different nationalities, so we do request you check with the local consulate or the diplomatic mission about the requirements for travel, should you be planning travel to Ukraine. The money is called hryvnia, and ATMs are not, again, reliable, so it's best to change currency, and again, UK and euros and USD are widely accepted. Most places do accept credit cards. Best time, again, is from March to October. Moldova, again, is 2 hours ahead of GMT, and again, there are direct flight options from London and European countries, and you do not require a visa for up to 90 days. But it does vary, again, for different nationalities. This only applies to UK citizens. The currency is called lei, and the economy is largely cash driven. So you must have enough cash to spend at all places, because credit cards are rarely accepted. Very, very few places accept them. USDs and euros can be changed easily. March to October are, again, the best ones to travel. So let's go on to the question rounds now. We've had a fair few, so let me just bring up the questions. Eriks, the restaurant you mentioned, the historic restaurant in Kiev, how far in advance should that be booked?
Normally, if you book a day for the next day, then it's fine, unless there is no big celebration in the city, or there is no big sports football match that is taking place in Kiev, because Kiev Kiev was one of the places where this FIFA was taking place together with Poland, so it has a very big infrastructure for these large events. But now, with large events being under the question for the future, I would say that it's not a problem to book. As long as you book it a day in advance, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. How easy is it to spot a bison in the forests of Belarus?
If it is visit to Białowieża Puszta, which is this national park on the border of Poland, then it is quite possible, and it has been a preservation program that was made and that was started exactly in Belarus, and from Belarus they later moved them also into the Poland, where you can spot them. Of course, it's like with any animal in the visit, it's not with the guarantees that will be the day when they are, but overall, this natural park visit is made in a way that this should be possible.
Great, thank you. You showed some palaces in Ukraine. So who used to live there? Was it like royalty or aristocrats?
Okay, so with the palaces, the territory of, I need to explain a bit the context, because the territory of Ukraine, as we know it nowadays, in reality, in its shape is since the end of the end of the World War II. Up to 1939, the part where is located Lviv still was the territory of Poland. So when we go even further back in the history, we need to get to the Polish-Lithuanian kingdom, and there is the nobility family that is Sobieski. These are the Polish nobilities, politicians. Sobieski family was also one of the families that is related to kings of Poland, and as that was the part of Poland, and these are the Polish who were building those castles. So residential nobility areas, and now of course when Ukraine gets its territory as it is now, then they are museums. But it's really, I went through a very complex and very long history in a very short sentence. It's really, you have to then, we should then look on all this as a Poland and Ukraine, then a bit separately of this region, because it has got its shape in various stages, starting from in reality 17th century even. So that's a more of a history lecture, but in brief, Polish noblemen.
Polish nobles.
Yes, Polish nobles.
Thank you. And what are the other enclaves beside Transnistria?
In Moldova, there are no other enclaves. The map that I was showing were the wine regions, and when I mentioned with disputed territories, as you know, when the Soviet Union collapsed, there appeared several of these disputable territories in the former area of all Soviet Union. We see now the Gorny Karabakh, for example, between Armenia and Azerbaijan, the story from the 90s with Chechnya. So this I had in mind, that there is a similar situation, that when the Soviet Union collapsed, there were the countries which established their independence based on those borders that countries had until the 1939. For example, like it was in the Baltic countries, then was the Belarus, Ukraine, and Moldova. But in some of these areas, there started disputes on, is it a part of this or that territory, and some of these areas, they were trying to get their independence from the modern time, from Russian Federation, and they were not willing to join these countries which were established on the bricks of collapsed Soviet Union as these independent countries. So the Transnistria is one of these cases that appeared with the end of Soviet Union, but inside the Moldova itself, there are no other disputed territories.
Thank you. And how have these countries handled the COVID outbreak?
COVID outbreak, of course, is a topic that we have everywhere. And I would say that overall, there are pretty much the same procedures that are doing in other places. Some are a bit more. I would say these three are a bit more relaxed if we compare to those measures that are taken now across the majority of Western Europe. Of course, as you probably know and have seen and heard on TV, there is some turbulent times in Belarus in general for other reasons apart of COVID. That has, of course, put the topic of COVID a bit apart, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. In this context, Ukraine probably is the one that has the clearest policy of what they are doing. The Ukraine, it was closed like for pretty long time in the summertime. It was closed up until September. but now the measures are pretty relaxed. So they are not in lockdown or something similar to what we are seeing in Europe at the moment.
That's good to know. Yeah, and I hope going forward into 2021, things do improve. Now that they're talking about the vaccine, let's hope, like,
Yes, of
it gets
course.
into
That
circulation soon and it works everywhere.
yeah.
So we can only remain hopeful. And what would you say about the food? Is there much variety for vegetarians in these countries? And what would you recommend everybody try there?
Food and vegetarians. We are this part of the Europe. We are pretty much meat eaters, so to say. That's some part of the culture, but it's also something that is changing. And of course, in all these places, you find also a contemporary approach to traditional food and how some traditional food has been transformed into modern. Of course, you still can have vegetarian options, and different also ethnic restaurants are present in the cities, because they all are cities with big number of inhabitants, so that's possible. But primary, when going here and being here, I will be looking on different ways on dealing with potatoes. That's the very very important part, and meat prepared in different ways, and also different pastries or different ways how you involve bread in your food. There is, for example, in Belarus, you bake a special bread where you cut out the middle and then you pour in soup. Beetroot is also something that is in salad, that is in the soup, and then now being modernized, you bake it, you cook it, you do anything with beetroot. And buckwheat. Buckwheat, I would say, a very typical menu at home could be, for example, buckwheat with minced meat sauce and cabbage salad. Very typical thing. In Kiev, of course, there is the Kiev cutlet, or Kiev cutlet. That's a traditional food where you have the meat that is baked in the bread again and filled with butter filling. I would say, if you look on what is suggested to be healthy food and what is fatty food, then very much here it is different fatty foods based on the meat and bread and potatoes.
Hey, thank you. And then we have a question about Crimea, Sebastopol, and Yalta. So, of course, we do not have any of our tours going there. But what are your thoughts like? If clients want to travel, would you ask them to stay away currently? I mean, it's mainly Foreign Office advice is against it, so we do not recommend to clients. But what are your thoughts?
Most probably, I wouldn't go there myself at the moment, for security reasons. But the thing is that the companies, the organized travel is not possible there, because if any company, be it, and especially if it is Ukrainian company, will organize a tour into Crimea, then you can, you most probably your travel license will be cancelled, because then you automatically go under the European sanctions. So organized trip where you can rely on a service is in reality forbidden at the moment. So if you see an offer of someone offering the tours to Crimea, then you must be ready that your insurance will not be working there. Exactly. And if you enter into any trouble, then it can be complicated. You can face big complications with it. So we don't do these tours because we have to we need the license to operate, and if we once lose it, I'm sure we will not be able to get it back anytime. Yeah.
There would also be issues actually coming back into UK, because the three territories are kind of banned. So like Luhansk, Donetsk, and Crimea, of course. So I think that's all the questions, but should anybody have any questions later, you can email ask@traveltheunknown.com. We will continue to host online events, and the next two talks have been confirmed as shown. And look out for our newsletter and registration details on our events page. And as always, a recording of this event will be available on our events page. Thank you again for joining us today, and thank you, Eriks. We hope to transition from the virtual to the real sometime soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I hope to see you all again in a couple of weeks when we will be taking you to Mexico. Enjoy the rest of your evenings. Stay inspired. Stay safe. Goodbye.